This pilot tried to purposely crash this plane that had 80 passengers on board. Last Sunday, an Alaska airline flight was flying from Washington to San Francisco but had to make an emergency stop when this off-duty pilot tried to crash the plane. 44-year-old pilot Joseph Emerson was off duty, but he was still on this flight. He was given access to sit on the deck jump seat, which is a third seat that's located in the cockpit behind the pilot. Typically, off-duty pilots are authorized to sit here, but not long after the flight took off, out of nowhere, Joseph got up and tried to turn off the engines. Fortunately, the pilots noticed and were able to stop him before he could do anything. Joseph was then taken to the back of the airplane where he was handcuffed to a railing. He's now facing 83 counts of attempted murder and reckless endangerment. But Joseph pleaded not guilty, and according to court documents, he said that he took magic mushrooms 48 hours before the flight. He also said that he's been struggling with depression for 6 years and hadn't slept for 40 hours and had a nervous breakdown. But Alaska Airlines have stated that Joseph seemed perfectly fine before boarding the plane. I really hope that Joseph faces serious consequences because this is traumatizing. I probably wouldn't be able to board another plane for a very long time after this.
Breaking news, a man was attacked by a bear in the kitchen of the St. Regis Resort. The victim was a security guard who was on duty at the resort at the time. They had received reports of a bear inside of the resort and he was investigating. However, while he was attempting to surprise the animal, it attacked him. As you can see in the security footage, the bear enters the kitchen first, followed by the security guard on his walkie-talkie. When the security guard approaches the corner, that is when the bear scratches him and knocks him to the ground. The bear was later determined to be a male and ran in the opposite direction of the victim. The victim was then able to crawl away and call 911. He was transported to a nearby hospital and treated for back injuries, but was later released Tuesday morning. The bear was found later Wednesday morning and euthanized. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
75 passengers lost their lives after this pilot let his children in the cockpit. On March 23rd, 1994, an Aeroflot aircraft was flying from Russia to Hong Kong when the airplane tragically crashed. Only a few hours into the flight, one of the pilots allowed his 2 children who were also on the flight to enter the cockpit so that they can see how everything operated. The pilot's 16-year-old son Elder and his 12-year-old daughter Yana had the opportunity to sit in the pilot's seat and play around with the aircraft's controls. Of course, autopilot was on, so this was not supposed to be dangerous. Well, at least that's what he thought. The pilot told his son Elder that he can turn the plane to one side so he can experience what it was to fly a plane. Unfortunately, this disabled autopilot. The pilots were unaware that the plane began turning, but once they noticed, the plane had steepened to almost 90 degrees. The plane started to quickly descend while the pilots tried to figure out what was wrong. And there's actually an audio recording of how everything played out, and you can hear the fear in these pilots' voices. The plane ended up crashing on a mountain in Russia, killing all 75 passengers on board. After investigating, they said that the cause of the crash were the children who were playing with the controls in the aircraft. And it was said that if the pilots had left the controls alone rather than trying to fix them manually, the plane would have corrected itself.
Robert Card has been found dead tonight. The Lewiston, Maine mass shooter who went on a rampage Wednesday, killing 18 people and wounding at least a dozen more, has been found dead.
Has been found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Authorities had been conducting a massive manhunt since the shooting on Wednesday night. The man you see there on your screen, police tell us, is 40-year-old Robert Card. They enlisted him initially as a sort of a person of interest, and then as the search went on, a suspect. You see him here. Police say this was pictures of him as he entered that bowling alley Wednesday night. There were 2 areas where the shooting happened Wednesday night. There were these pictures taken from the bowling alley, and then there was a bar about 10 minutes away.
Well, at least the families of the people who died and the wounded who lived won't have to deal with that guy going to court. That's it for now, Bushkis. Bye for now.
I think about space more than the Roman Empire. I don't get it. I know this is a really dumb question, but space is a vacuum, right?
Uva.
Fire can't exist within a vacuum, right? There's no oxygen to feed the fire.
Yeah.
How is the sun fire?
I don't think it's just made of fire.
But
I think
how
it's a chemical reaction. Like it's. I don't think it's like
But in
normal.
a vacuum?
Maybe it has its own atmosphere.
But then wouldn't it burn its own atmosphere?
So that's why the sun is going to burn out at some point. Stars die.
Dude, have you seen the difference, like, of the temperature and according to compared to in the middle of the sun? See, for you to say, the temperature is completely different than in the middle.
How hot is it?
I thought it was 10,000 degrees. That
Celsius,
can't be right.
We know that we don't know what the difference
According
is.
to West Texas A&M, the burning of the sun is not chemical combustion. It's nuclear fusion. Don't think of the sun as a giant campfire. It's more like a giant hydrogen bomb.
Whoa.
That's nuts.
So many people watching this like, do you have a podcast right now? I'm not a scientist.
Someone gave us these mics, okay?
I make jokes.
A group of psychologists studied 400 different movies to find the most realistic psychopath. And the winner was Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. They said that he appears to be effectively invulnerable to any form of humanity or emotion. Popular characters Hannibal Lecter and Patrick Bateman didn't even make the top 25. The actor who played Danny in The Shining didn't know it was a horror movie until after he was done with filming. He was led to believe that he was just filming a drama movie about a family that lives in a hotel. This was the original design for Voldemort, which many find far more terrifying than what they went with. The woman who voiced the demon Pazuzu in The Exorcist had a son who killed his entire family. He then proceeded to shoot himself in both temples simultaneously, and he did all of this while wearing a Freddy Krueger mask. While filming Poltergeist, the clown doll nearly killed Robbie Freeling when an animatronic error caused its arm to tighten around his neck. When the actor started gesturing that he couldn't breathe, Steven Spielberg thought he was just improv acting.
Have you heard of the alien ruins in China?
No.
This archaeologist from China, his name is Bei Yu, went to this place and was dumbfounded at what he saw. It's right next to these two lakes, and one lake is saltwater, one lake freshwater. He said there are no signs of life at all. The sharp mountains are also lifeless, as if they have experienced a massive fire. The scenery here did not originate from Earth, but from another planet in outer space. And then he saw this mountain that was like triangular shaped. Turns out it's man-made. He says it looks like a space station.
What?
And he goes to the cave entrance. Inside this pyramid, he discovers iron pipes, and they would lead down to the lake. They tested the metal. 8% of the material you cannot find on our periodic table.
Wow.
And they found quicklime, a conductor of energy.
Wow.
So some of these pipes were filled with it, and they would lead down to the lake, producing energy to the pyramid.
Oh
And
my goodness.
remember the theory we talked about, the pyramids being able to harness and distribute electricity? This thing is set up the exact same way.
Breaking news Friday, October 27th. The attorney representing Gabby Petito's family has now filed a motion to compel testimony from the Laundrie's family attorney, Stephen Bertolino. The document filed was 4 pages long. Basically, Gabby Petito's family wants to know what Brian Laundrie told Stephen Bertolino after her passing. In order to get Bertolino to testify, Pat Riley, the attorney for Gabby Petito's family, has filed Brian Laundrie's notebook as Exhibit A. Here's a refresher on what it said. Pause to read. Pat Riley said, quote, part of our case is our allegations that the Laundries and Bertolino knew that Gabby was deceased and where her body was located. I believe Brian Laundrie told Bertolino these things. When Bertolino was asked for a comment, he basically had none. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
They literally have a portal in their basement, and supposedly there was 200 demons in their basement, bro. So this shit was the portal to hell. This shit was low-key. There was a mom and she had like 3 kids, right? They were normal. They were good kids, right? Until one day, they started changing. They started acting violent, and the mom was like, what the hell is going on, right? And it was crazy because someone took a picture outside their house and they said it was like a 12-foot demon, they said, staring at them through the window. Holy fuck. So look, do you see this? That's a real picture. That's a real picture of their house, right? In the beginning of the haunting, the mom and the kids were blessed. It was until they were all in the living room together. She noticed when she looked at one of her kids, the eyes started rolling back and she started going, like she was like moaning. And mom's like, oh, are you good? And while she was taking care of this one kid, her other kid.
Breaking news Friday, October 27th. There will now be another hearing regarding the investigative genealogy used in the Brian Kohberger case. As you can see here in the documents released today, the judge overseeing the Brian Kohberger case says there will be a hearing regarding the investigative genealogy used in the case. As you may remember, DNA was found on the knife sheath that was left behind at the crime scene. Through IGG, Investigative Genetic Genealogy, they were able to build a family tree which led them to Kohberger. At this time, a date for the hearing has not been set, but I'll keep you guys updated. What do you guys think? Drop in the comments.
If you see this plane in the sky, just know it's over. It's over. This is the Doomsday Plane. Doesn't sound good, does it? And it's not. Seriously not believe some of the stuff this plane does. It's actually scary. Like, really scary. The scariest part is that this plane is running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, running right now, in case of an emergency where nuclear war broke out. It is literally constantly on standby. Imagine how much fuel that's burning. Now, what is this thing actually used for? Well, in case of disaster or nuclear war, the president and his men can basically get on this plane and stay in the air. Read some of the capabilities, it's mad. It can stay up for over a week just in the air without refueling, and then they can just send fuel up to it with little jets, mad. On this plane, there is a nuclear control desk, so they can literally fire away nukes from the sky. So there could be a huge nuclear war where the world basically gets wiped out. The president can just be vibing in his jet above, basically controlling the war from the skies, which is crazy. Just have one question: if the whole world is destroyed, and then he lands, it'll be a bit like, yeah.
Breaking news, they have now identified 10 of the victims from the main crime spree. Joseph Walker was at the bar and grill and ran after the suspect with a weapon in order to subdue him. Bob Violette was operating a youth bowling league at the time of the crime, and he passed away protecting the children. Stephen Bozzella and Bill Brackett were at the bar and grill when their lives were taken as they were part of a gathering for deaf people who played cornhole. Trisha Aslin, who was there having a good time bowling when the crime took place, lost her life when she attempted to run to call 911. 42-year-old Arthur Strout and father of 5 had his life taken at the bar and grill. 40-year-old Brian McFarland had his life taken while he was attending the deaf cornhole tournament as well. Pennington Brewer Ross also passed away due to the crime, however his location during the crime is unknown. Joshua Seal, a husband and father of 4, also lost his life while attending the cornhole tournament. Tommy Conrad was a manager at the Just-in-Time Recreation Center bowling alley, and he survived by his 9-year-old daughter. The suspect is still at large. As of this morning, authorities gave an update saying that they have a perimeter set up near the boat dock where they located his vehicle. Additionally, they stated the shelter-in-place order has not changed. According to authorities, they will not release any additional information as they do not want to interrupt the investigation. They still have 9 unidentified victims. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
When police came a-knocking on this old man's door back in December of 2020 to have a little chat about 2 very old and very violent cold cases, they had no idea what they were walking into. Months apart, back in 1987 in Royal Tunbridge Wells, England, these 2 young women were both ambushed inside of their apartments within a small radius, and they were both brutally attacked. One was found inside of her apartment, and the other one was found dumped 40 miles away. They were referred to as the Bedsit murders and went unsolved for over 30 years until police were able to find a link to one man through familial DNA, which brings us back to that old man's doorstep. There was no question that 66-year-old David Fuller was their man, but it's once they started rummaging through his pad that they would find they were going to get a lot more than they bargained for. They started finding pictures.
Why does that person look dead?
There were hard drives, folders on his computer with extremely sus-sounding names, and through all of this name, this moniker just kept popping up everywhere. Necro Lord. You see, David was a hospital electrician for years, and despite his thousands of trips to the mortuary wings, no one ever suspected he was ever doing anything other than routine checkups. Boy oh boy, you can probably guess by now that the checkups were not even remotely routine. From 2007 to 2020, David Fuller recorded 23 terabytes, 900,000 files of himself tampering with over 100 deceased people, doing everything you can possibly even think of. The youngest was 9, and the oldest was 100 years old. For his own amusement, fun, I don't know, he would log their details from the mortuary into a notebook and would look their families and them up on Facebook. His last video picture entry was dated just a few days before he was arrested. Now, even with all that, the videos, of course, dated back to 2007, but David had been working in hospitals since 1989.
You know, this guy looks different in every picture. He does. I'm just speculating here, but I think one of the problems they're having in finding mass shooter Robert Card is that he seriously looks a little different in every picture. These are both pictures of him fishing. That don't look like the same guy. Now, I'm not saying it's not the same guy. I'm just saying he looks vastly different. So if police and FBI tell you to look for this guy, take a good look at that picture. And I saw this guy, I don't know if I'd recognize him. They did just release some new information about mass shooter Robert Card, though. He was obsessed with playing cornhole. All he wanted to do was play cornhole. He'd even play cornhole at work. So if I see this guy, a guy who looks like this guy holding a fish, or a guy who looks like this playing cornhole, carrying an AR-15, I'll make sure to notify the police. If this is the best information they have on Robert Card, I don't know how they're ever going to catch this guy. Bye for now, Booshkies. Bye for now.
Breaking news, a man has jumped off of a bridge in Epcot because of a bet. As the man approached the bridge in Italy, he asked, quote, "How deep is the water?" About a minute after pondering the depth of the water, he jumped. Bystanders could be heard saying, quote, "You're gonna get kicked out of Disney, mister." Others could be heard saying, quote, "He's gonna jump." However, Disney security wasn't far behind. Quote, "A Disney manager was on her radio before he even hit the water, so when he joined his buddies, Disney security was right behind him." This was according to another bystander. The total bet was $6,000. At this time, there is no proof of charges being filed, but Walt Disney World was reached out to see if that will occur. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
I heard a story about a group of kids that survived a plane crash in the Amazon and survived 40 days. So there was a family, right? It was a mother, 2 pilots, and 4 kids. Something happened where they crashed. The 2 pilots died, and the mother died from her injuries like a couple days after. And the kids were able to survive 40 days. The oldest one is like 13, 14, 15, whatever. And the youngest is a 1-year-old. Nobody died.
What the?
And like, it was weird because they sent out search parties to go rescue them, but they couldn't find the kids. But when they found the kids, they weren't that far from the plane. So what the grandmother says is like, there's a little mythical creature called the Duende. You ever watch Lord of the Rings?
The little hobbits?
Yeah, they think it's a little hobbit because in Lord of the Rings, when you put the ring on, you go into another world that the outside world can't see you in. So they think that some little creature looked over the kids and like protected them from like the dangers, because you know there's jaguars, snakes, and like that. Like them kids should have died within like a week.
High key.
This guy had a picture of his mother's killer hanging in his bedroom for almost 40 years and had no clue. One morning back in 1981, Jeff and his younger brother Tim are suddenly awoken by police saying, "Hey, you gotta come with us." And as Tim is being led past his mother's room, which is closed, an officer from inside flings that door wide open, and Tim can see right in there, scarring this image permanently into his mind. Linda Slayton's sister Judy had just dropped by for their morning coffee routine. She lived just a few doors down in the same apartment building, but no one answered the door, and Judy thought, that's a little weird, but it's probably nothing, and she left. But as she's leaving, she turns and sees that the bedroom window is just left wide open. So she goes over to that window and takes a peek inside and sees her sister lying sideways on the bed, posed in a way that made it very clear that a disturbing attack had taken place. A metal coat hanger still tightly wrapped around her neck, and the boys slept through the whole thing, had no idea. Jeff and Tim went off to live with their grandparents. They were back at school within a few weeks, and they were just kind of left wondering and also in fear that this person who they referred to as the monster would come back for them. Along with the grandparents, someone had also been there for Timothy in particular at the time, Coach Joe. Coach Joe was Tim's football coach and was actually a pretty big presence in his life, would drive him to and from practice. It was almost like an authority, you could even say father figure to Tim. And Coach Joe, well, he was always making sure Tim was doing okay, constantly checking up, how you holding up, Timmy? Everything okay? But he was also a little curious and would start to be like, hey, how's the investigation going? Any leads, developments? He also continued to drive him to football practice. This was taken 1 month after Tim lost his mom, and that picture was proudly hung in Tim's house for the next 40 years, while the case also went completely cold. Now, right after the crime, when the cops are talking to Tim, they ask him what he was doing the day before, basically, and he said that he was at football and that Coach Joe had driven him home. But even though police knew this at the time, they thought that the ex-husband and also the older brother, Jeffy, apparently had recently, like a day before or something, gotten in a fight with his mom. They thought that those two were more compelling suspects, and they were pretty much instantly cleared. Well, in 2019, using some of of the DNA that was recovered at the scene in 1981. With the help of genetic genealogy, they got their answer. Joseph Mills, Coach Joe, after giving Tim a lift home, returns to the home later that night when the family is out. He takes the screen off the window, it's unlocked, he wiggles through, hides in the closet, waits there until everybody comes home, and he sits in there for a while until everybody's sleeping before emerging from the closet and doing what he does to Linda.
This is a photo of a man named Christopher McCandless who died in Alaska wanting to live off the land with very little supplies and equipment. McCandless found an abandoned bus where he stayed for 4 months and survived off the 9 pounds of rice he brought, small game, and wild plants. He also brought some books which he read and took notes on. He tried to keep track of the days and weather and took self-portraits with a camera he found on the bus. But McCandless faced many challenges while trying to survive. He had very little clothing suitable for the harsh Alaskan climate, and he suffered from cold, hunger, loneliness, and some injuries. At one point he shot a moose, but failed to preserve the meat properly, so it spoiled. He may have also been poisoning himself by eating the seeds from a plant called wild potato, which weakened him and made him unable to hunt or hike. Unfortunately, he couldn't leave even if he wanted to because he got trapped by the swollen Tekwanika River. He eventually realized he was dying, and he wrote a farewell note on the bus door. He passed away in his sleeping bag sometime in August 1992, and his body was discovered by a hunter on September 6th of the same year. Christopher wrote in his journal that he had a happy life and that he learned many things from his journey.
This girl was possessed by 6 demons. Not only was she possessed by 6 demons, these demons were popular figures in history. One of them being Hitler, Nero the Emperor, one of them being Judas. There's a few more, but one of them was Lucifer himself. Every single voice you hear from her, it sounds different. What? 6 voices, and they're different languages. Because you can imagine, Hitler speaks German, of course. One of them was Nero speaking Latin. One of them was Judas speaking like the old, I think like Aramaic language. One of the biggest tells like somebody's possessed is when they speak languages that it would be impossible for them to know.
Yeah.
Here, I'll play it. There's videos? Yeah, there's audio. Cause back then they didn't have video recording, right? But they had like audio recording. So this is her regular voice. Before she was possessed. Sounds like a regular woman, right?
Very normal. Okay, very normal. Fast forward to now. What she, go right there. So this is
Breaking news, authorities have located the weapon used to commit the main crime spree. Authorities confirmed today that the weapon was located inside of the abandoned car that they found near the boat dock along the river. Here is a look at a map showing where the river travels. The department's public safety commissioner is emphasizing that they are not asserting the suspect's presence in the water, but are conducting thorough investigation to explore all possibilities. Authorities also confirmed along the Anaskogan River there is a certain site that they are fixated on. They said they are looking for 2 things in the water: potential bodies and possible additional victims, and they are looking for additional evidence of the crimes. Though authorities confirmed that the weapon was located today, they did locate the vehicle 2 days ago. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.